basically spending their whole time trying to figure out how can we get Derrick Henry to the ground so we don't have to deal with that.
Right. And I think, like, obviously the Henry stats are ridiculous, that he's, I think, the first NFL player in history to have 180 rush yards in 3 straight games, which is nuts. So obviously everyone knows the Titans game plan on offense is going to be run Derrick Henry. Most people, the only times they watch the Titans have been the last 2 weeks. So I think Ryan Tannehill, it might be a little underrated, actually, just because we did go against the Patriots and the Ravens last 2 weeks, which were probably the best 2 secondaries in the league. So I think a lot of people forget that Tannehill, he did have the highest passer rating, like, in the NFL. And I think he had the highest yards per attempt in the NFL and, like, one of the highest completion percentages. So I do think we might be opening up more, and especially getting, like, A.J. Brown more involved. So I think everyone knows Henry's coming, and he definitely is coming, but we do utilize the play action a ton. And I think that's something we're going to use more, since the Chiefs, although I do think their defense is good, but I don't think their secondary quite compares to what the Patriots and the Ravens had. But then again, that's only if you are slowing down Henry at first. If he's getting 8 yards a carry, then we're just going to keep giving it to him. So you kind of have to, like, prove you can stop Henry, and then we'll probably become 2-dimensional if we have to. But I think we can.
I feel like that's sort of the thing, though, right? Because the Titans' ideal game plan, what they're sort of built to do, is perfect for having a 1 to 2 score lead, right? I mean, once you get the other team down a couple of scores, then you can just basically run right out the game. I mean, the Chiefs just went down 24-0 and obviously came back, but I don't think it's going to be that easy against the Titans. I think, I think one of the biggest things in this game is just going to be if one side can get a 2-score lead over the other, they each have different ways of getting there, but they have ways of just of controlling the game from there on out. If it's the Titans, honestly, I think they should try that as their strategy. But it is going to be the big question: is if we're at a shootout scenario now, can Tannehill and his weapons keep up with the Chiefs and theirs? And he didn't have to push it in the last couple of games, throwing for under 100 yards in each of them. But that, I think, that's sort of the advantage Chiefs scenario. If the Chiefs get up a couple of scores and you suddenly can't just run it 50 times.
That's definitely true. I would definitely give you the advice of not spotting us 24 points, because I think if there's anyone down a big lead to, it would be the Titans, because you just won't get the ball enough times to make up those points. So, yeah, I don't think any team wants to fall behind. My one counter to that, though, like everyone's saying, like when we played previously, like the Chiefs had a 2-possession lead in the fourth quarter. I think you went up by like 9 or 10 points with like 12 minutes left, and we came back from that. And we've actually had like a number of times this year where we have come back from 2-score deficits. Like even week 15 against the Texans, we lost that game, but we were down 14-0, and we ended up tying it in the second half, and then we lost by a field goal at the end. But obviously you don't want to be behind, but I think we can pass more than people think we can. It's kind of weird. Obviously you have Mahomes, Tyreek, Kelsey, Damian Williams is playing good. You guys seem basically unstoppable. And our defense, it wasn't that great the second half of the season, but all of a sudden in the playoffs, it's been amazing. So I kind of trust Vrabel and Dean Pease to come up with a perfect game plan. But I was going to ask, like how can the Chiefs offense even be slowed down with all those weapons? Like because I know last year in the AFC Championship game, New England basically shut the Chiefs out in the first half. Is that something that you think is possible, that the Titans could come up with a good game plan to stop you, or do you think it's going to have to be kind of more like a shootout?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I think I would find it hard. I don't think that there's going to be a team that's going to be able to totally shut down a healthy Chiefs offense the way that the Patriots were able to last year. Because the big thing that the Patriots were doing was just simply throwing a lot of looks out there that they'd never put on film before, and that therefore it was impossible for Mahomes and the Chiefs to have ever practiced for. They were just sort of throwing a bunch of weird stuff, playing good man coverage and getting pressure with not too many rushers on Mahomes, and just forcing him to stand around and think and let the pressure get to him. And Mahomes has just matured so much as a player that I think that kind of stuff just doesn't really work as well. And to the extent that the Chiefs struggled in kind of the middle of the year, that's when they were incredibly banged up, including Mahomes. Half the offensive line was injured, a bunch of his weapons were injured, and people were talking about, oh, well, here's a blueprint you play man coverage, you get pressure with three. It's like, yeah, well, that works when the offensive line is injured and when you don't have to deal with, these receivers like, Tyreek and Sammy Watkins and Travis Kelce, and even the backup guys aren't that bad. You can't man cover everybody well. And so that's the thing. And now I think now that the Chiefs are kind of clicking on all those cylinders, there's not a really great way to do it. I mean, the Chiefs carve up zone coverages a little bit better than they do man, so that helps. But then, Mahomes showed in this last game and several of these other ones where, they will intentionally design route combinations that'll clear out a side of the field. And if you give Mahomes 40 yards of empty space, he's going to take that with his legs as well. And so there's no real silver bullet to it. I would say the biggest weakness in general for the Chiefs is that if you can just get them to stumble a little bit and get them into short yardage situations, that's the one thing they don't have. They don't have a running back stable that's really dependable to get yards when the other team knows you have to run. The Chiefs basically only run the ball when either the situation or like the defense is just crying out for you to do it. I mean, one of the funnier stats of the last game was that, they went from down 24-0 to up 28-24. And at the end of that half, they had exactly one rushing yard. And they finished with, I think, 47 rushing yards that weren't Mahomes scrambles. I mean, it's just 100%. Everything is Mahomes centric and around their passing weapons. But if you get the Chiefs in situations where they're going to have to run the ball, that is the one thing they can't do. And so that's just the thing. I mean, you get them into a 3rd and 1, if you've been decent at covering the pass, you get them thinking about, okay, I guess we gotta run the ball for this one. That's the way to get them. And it's the big thing is, again, if the Titans are able to keep on grinding out those big 10, 15 play drives, and every single time the Chiefs end up in this 3rd and short, and they know that if they don't get it, then they might not see the field for another 10 minutes. Those are the situations. Those are going to be the key moments in terms of trying to contain the Chiefs.
I almost think for the Titans strategy that's kind of play a very bend but don't break defense. Like we get the occasional turnover, but with the Chiefs, I'm almost okay with letting up yards, but just not touchdowns. So like if you're at the 40-yard line and you throw a 50-yard pass, like I'd be okay with that as long as you're not in the end zone. Because I think our big advantage on defense is going to be just in like the real short yardage situations where you can't really use the speed to your advantage as much. I hope I'm not going out on too big of a limb saying this, but I think the Titans are the best goal line or short yardage defense in the NFL. And you saw like how many times we stopped the Ravens on 4th and 1. We stopped the Patriots on 1st and goal at the 1. We've had a ton of like huge goal line stops throughout the season. We just have to make sure to keep you guys in front of us. Cause like if we get you to short yardage situations, then like all your advantages with kind of like Tyreek and Watkins and Mecole Hardman, like your speed doesn't really help that much if you're inside the 10.
And granted, they scored some goal line touchdowns against the Texans. The Texans aren't a great defense, but basically all of those were just pure Mahomes improvisations. Like he's just going to run around and run horizontal to the goal line. Either somebody's going to get open or he's going to try to run it in, or at least try to use that threat to open guys up and do things. I mean, that's kind of their only play for that scenario is just use the dual threat nature of Mahomes for that. And obviously that, leaves them open to potential hits, which, the Chiefs of course don't want. And so, yeah, I mean, I think if we see a couple of scenarios like that, those could be the critical moments in this game.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically exactly what we did last week. Cause like Lamar Jackson by himself had over 500 yards and the Ravens only got a touchdown one time. So I think that's kind of like, I think we're going to be okay with letting you like churn out yards in the middle of the field. Like just try to get pressure and try to force a turnover, basically let you get yards until you get down like in the red zone or near the goal line. And that's kind of where we can tighten up. And
I will say, like, one thing I think will be different from the Chiefs than the Ravens as an opponent is just the Chiefs have been pretty good at protecting the football. For all of the talk about how many wild throws and things like that Mahomes has thrown, he actually doesn't throw many picks. I mean, he had, I think, like 4 or 5 this year. He had 12 last year and 50 touchdowns. He doesn't do anything too crazy. Usually when there's an interception, it's because of a miscommunication with the wide receiver of some sort. He's pretty consistent and pretty good about that. Whereas, the Ravens, if you count their 4th downs, I mean, effectively turned over the ball 5 times last week. And so, you're definitely not beating the Titans that way. That much I know. But in terms of your defense, I mean, my impression is that kind of the Titans are pretty much solid all around, but there's not a whole lot of big stars. I mean, Bayard's a guy who I hear a lot about and, looks good, but who else should I be scared of on your side?
Well, I think we have like Gerald Casey and our rookie Jeff Simmons right on the interior D line and Harold Landry just rushing. I mean, we need to really get to Mahomes if we're going to do anything. But our secondary is just really solid. It's like Byard you mentioned, and then Kenny Vaccaro, our other safety, and then Adoree Jackson's our fast corner, and Logan Ryan has been really solid in the slot. So I think our whole secondary is kind of like they're all just ball hawks. Like they're not necessarily like shutdown players, but like anytime there's a tip pass, like they're always there. Or like anytime you're like throwing across like if he tries to do a no look pass or anything, like Byard is always around the ball. So, and then Rashaan Evans is just a stud in goal line situations, although you guys don't run the ball that much. So I don't know how much it's going to matter. It might be more the scheme than anything, just because I do think with DMPs that we just have so much multiplicity and so much like disguise looks and like exotic blitzes. Like we like to blitz like our corners or safeties like pretty often. So I think it's more just like the scheme, like disguises and like trying to like confuse you into a mistake, like giving you little yards at a time, but hoping that we could just catch you in like one mistake and then we're going to capitalize on it. Special teams is interesting too, because I think the Titans lead the league in like blocked field goals. We actually blocked like the Colts. Actually, we blocked the Chiefs field goal and the Colts field goal, which won both of those games. So we've done that multiple times. We also have the best punter in the NFL. I don't know if that's going to matter or not, and then we also have a kicker who has not attempted a field goal the entire season, which has to be something that has never happened before. So special teams could be kind of interesting in this one. Do you have any like under the radar guy that you think is going to be big in this game on either side of the ball?
As far as the underrated guys, we've talked about a lot of the big names. I think it's going to be potentially Anthony Hitchens in this game. He's the Chiefs' middle linebacker. They gave him a bunch of money a couple of years ago, and he's never lived up to that contract and probably never will. He's a guy who just doesn't quite have the speed to do everything you want from a highly paid middle linebacker. He's not a Kuechly, certainly, but he's in this scheme, he's been able to come downhill and just be a thumper a lot more. And based on some of the kind of interviews through this week with like the team and things like that, I kind of get the feeling that they're going to use him to spy Derrick Henry. They used a lighter linebacker that had barely seen the field last week as a spy on Deshaun Watson, and I think they're going to try to replicate that. Where, all right, this is the guy we're most afraid of. We need a bigger dude now. So I do think Hitchens might be spying Henry the whole game, or at least the kind of the main guy they want matching up against him. And so, hey, if Hitchens can have himself a good game, I think that might be the deciding factor in this one. What about on your side?
Yeah, that's a good call. My guy is going to be A.J. Brown. I don't know if that's too big of a name, although he's done like nothing in the playoffs. So I feel like nationally people don't know him that well yet, but he's been so good at yards after catch. Like he averaged 19 yards per catch during the season. I think he hasn't done much in the playoffs against shutdown corners, but the last 6 games of the season, he was averaging over 100 yards and a touchdown for the whole last 6 games. So like he was really breaking out. And I think the Chiefs don't necessarily have like one shutdown corner like the Pats and the Ravens did that can shut him down. So if he ever gets in space, he just like takes off. I just think we need so many more points this week than we did the last 2 weeks. Even if Henry gets 150 yards or so, I do think we're going to need someone else to step up. So I think A.J. Brown is kind of the guy to watch. Like if he gets the ball in space, I mean, he could just get like a 40-yard or turn like a 12-yard play into like a 40-yard play pretty easily. So that would be my hope. I think if we win, we're going to need a lot out of him. All right, I think we might be onto the prediction stage here. I'm going to guess I know what we're both going to pick, but how do you think the game ends up playing out?
Yeah, it's tough because, I mean, like I said, I just have a feeling that I think it's going to be a bruising battle in the first half, and one of these teams is going to get a lead, and that's going to advantage their style of play, and there may be a breakout here. And so, I think it's going to feel close, but the final score, I think the line is like 7.5 points for the Chiefs, which I think is pretty generous. But nonetheless, let's see, I'm going to say it's a 9-point game. Chiefs win this one 33-24.
I also think it's going to be really high scoring. I think there's going to be a lot of points to go around. Honestly, if we had played in the first round of the playoffs, like I thought was going to happen, if the Patriots had beaten the Dolphins, then I would have been much less